Cheat on me with my best friend? I'll wreck your career and publicly humiliate both of you. Poophead and Sarah have been like family to my wife and I for several years. Practically ever since we moved in across the street from them, the four of us were extremely tight. Our kids are the same age as theirs and are all good friends. We are one big family unit. We did dinner together a few times a week. We went on vacations together. I truly saw Poophead as a brother, and my wife and Sarah were very close too. 5 months ago, I was completely blindsided by the discovery of an affair between my wife and Poophead. My wife had left her email open on our computer, and I saw an email from her to her longtime therapist saying that Poophead would be joining her at an upcoming session again. WTF? My mind started racing. Why in the world would Poophead be going to her therapy sessions without my knowledge? I did a search and found some other emails to and from the therapist, proving that Poophead had been going to sessions together with her for about 6 weeks. I checked our mobile phone account and discovered that since late summer, they had been exchanging hundreds of texts every day, peaking at nearly 500 a day by the holidays. Speaking of the holidays, my wife and I hosted both of our families, parents, siblings, etc., for both Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner, and Poophead and Sarah joined us either for dinner or after dinner on both holidays. Text records showed that the entire time that they were at our house celebrating with our families, my wife and Poophead were texting each other across the room. They were doing that pretty much every time the four of us hung out, for months. And you know, all day, every day, just in general. But what bothers me the most is that they were doing it with Sarah and I right there. I confronted my wife with the evidence, and she admitted that yes, she and Poophead had fallen in love. It just happened, I don't know how, but I love him and I don't feel anything for you anymore, I'm sorry. They had gone on a school district trip together, something had happened in her hotel room and things had moved quickly from there. She explained as I lay face down on the couch, unable to look at her, that they had already made plans to move out and divorce me and Sarah. And while they didn't plan to move in together immediately because of the kids, they'd probably do so eventually. The meetings with the therapist were supposedly mostly for the purpose of finding a way to break this to me and Sarah as gently as possible, because they were so very concerned for our well-being. Sarah and I are fairly certain that they weren't planning on telling us about the affair at all, and were simply going to discover their feelings for one another several months down the line after they'd come up with some other reason to divorce the two of us. My wife moved out 2 months ago. I was and still am utterly destroyed. I cry every day. I cried writing the first few paragraphs of this story just now. I worry non-stop about the impact on our kids. But I am also not exactly a shrinking violet when I feel that I've been wronged. And in this case, I was objectively very, very wronged. So a couple years ago, Poophead ran for the Board of Education seat as a pretty extreme underdog. I helped him with his campaign materials and debate prep, and my wife, a well-known school district employee, this becomes important later, got the word out as best she could. Much to our surprise, he actually won in a squeaker by just a few dozen votes. Being on the board became the center of Poophead's world. He joined every committee that he could. This turned into the foundation of his affair with my wife, as they were constantly going to school events and meetings together on evenings and weekends. Once I discovered the affair, my thoughts turned pretty quickly to revenge, and it occurred to me that an extramarital affair between a member of the Board of Education and an employee of the school district was at least bad politics and possibly violated district policy. Making things far worse for them was that my wife was in the running for an open administrative position, and everyone knew that she was more or less guaranteed the job and the major pay raise that came with it. She had just finished her master's degree in school administration at the urging of her principal and the superintendent so that she could be promoted to this specific position. I had plenty of evidence of the affair, texts from both of them admitting to it, text records showing that they were texting hundreds of times a day, emails to and from the therapist, etc. I considered simply emailing all of the evidence to the board and the superintendent, but felt like I, as the grieving betrayed spouse, might not seem as a credible source. So instead I invented a fictitious, furious friend who was planning on showing up to the next board meeting and publicly shaming the two of them for the affair. I told my wife that I'd try to talk this person down, but couldn't guarantee that they wouldn't show up and humiliate them publicly. As I expected, this led Poophead to conclude that the only option was for him to preemptively admit the affair to the board. The superintendent subsequently recommended that Poophead resign, which he did. Sarah said that he was utterly humiliated and crushed, and barely got out of bed for a few days afterward. Once word of the affair and Poophead's resignation started getting around, the superintendent, a longtime friend of both my wife and Poophead, contacted my wife and tearfully informed her that it was no longer politically appropriate for her to be promoted to an administrative position within the district. The position that had been lined up for her was later filled by an outside candidate. This sent waves of confusion and rumor throughout the district, as it was pretty well known that my wife was getting the job. The day after she was informed that she wasn't getting the promotion, my wife and I, despite our crumbling marriage, took our son out to breakfast together on his birthday, and a parent stopped by our table to congratulate her on her new role. She said thanks, then excused herself to go cry in the bathroom for a while. I let the dust settle for a couple of weeks, and then, right before my wife moved out, let them in on my little secret. There was never a furious friend threatening to expose them in the first place, just me. Word of all of this has gotten around our fairly small town, which Poophead grew up in and my wife has worked in for nearly 20 years. My wife refuses to talk to me about how things are at work now, but I've heard from some people I know in the district that her formerly spotless reputation has taken a major hit. Poophead, formerly a gregarious social presence in our neighborhood and at events and pubs in town, has completely gone underground and barely emerges to mow his lawn. He's moving out soon to a poopy little townhouse, which is all he can afford due to all the child support he's going to have to pay his wife. My wife and Poophead claim that they plan on trying to make things work together, despite all the public humiliation. I wish them lots of luck with that. I'm sure it will be a lot of fun to show their faces together in town. Answers to some common questions in the comments. Are you and Sarah a thing now? You should totally be a thing. That would be awesome. No, we're friends. We've been incredibly important to each other since this all started, and I've certainly gotten a lot closer, but not in the way everyone's thinking. This would all be so much harder to deal with if I didn't have her to lean on, and she says she feels the same way about me. We're going through basically the exact same situation with the same players after all. Poophead hasn't moved out yet. Once he does, we plan to go back to getting the kids together more often like they used to. It'll never be the same, of course. She already does come over with the kids from time to time, but it's just tough with Poophead's constant presence across the street. Didn't your revenge hurt both sets of kids? Not really. Poophead has a day job, the Board of Education was his hobby and his passion, but this didn't affect his income at all. And my wife has been assured that if she wants to pursue an administrative position with another district, she'll have glowing letters of recommendation from her superintendent and principal. It'll mean giving up a lot of work relationships in the process, but given the hit her reputation has taken, I'm guessing she makes that jump sooner rather than later. In the meantime, not moving to an administrative position means that she still has summers off with the kids. Why did you call her your wife instead of your former wife? We're working our way through divorce mediation, but it isn't final yet. Will be soon. Why didn't you notice all the texting your wife was doing? Well, I did. It was really starting to piss me off. It was excessive. She has a big social circle and does tend to text a lot anyway, but it was really getting over the top to the point where she was completely ignoring me and the kids. At one point in November, I asked her to agree to a no phones at the dinner table rule, which she agreed to reluctantly, but then would pout through dinner, and eventually she just started using her phone during dinner again. All that said, I was blind. Not only was the texting getting weird, but her relationship with Poophead was starting to make me uncomfortable. Sarah noticed it too and agreed. We confronted them a couple of times about it directly, and they both swore up and down that it was just school stuff that they were talking about. There was nothing else going on. And for whatever reason, we believed them. Probably because the mind tends to refuse to see things that it doesn't want to see. Thanks, by the way, for all the support in the comments. I couldn't reply to every one, but I did read them all, and I appreciate them. Even the brutally honest feedback from people who feel that I did the wrong thing. Posting this and reading all of the responses introduced me to perspectives I hadn't considered about all of this, and reminded me most of all that the anguish I'm dealing with is pretty normal given the situation I'm going through. I had a pretty okay Memorial Day weekend, even though I missed my wife and thought a lot about the things we'd probably be doing as a family. I'm taking my kids camping next weekend, and having something like that to look forward to and plan has me feeling pretty. Hey guys, please like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help me out. Thanks. Getting them to press a self-destruct button, outstanding move. Minimum effort, maximum destruction, and didn't even have to get his hands dirty. I respect that. Yeah, this isn't just your average everyday ProRevenge, this is advanced revenge. I dig it. It's still a pretty sad story. A great life for all four of them dissolves because two people make the selfish decision to focus on their own happiness rather than the other person's. I sorta dig it and mostly am just bummed. The real tragedy is the impact something like this has on the kids. Something had happened in her hotel room. Well, that's one way to put it. They refused to tell us what exactly happened, which tells us all we need to know. Even our child psychologist rolled his eyes at that part of the story. I love you. It's been more than a year since my husband divorced me for someone else. I still cry every day. I will never see justice of any kind for the years I lost loving him. I love you for getting your revenge. Faithless people suck, and they deserve everything they get. I know exactly how you feel, and I'm so sorry for what you're going through. I hope it gets better someday. I still have no idea whether it will. I love how you got them to destroy themselves. That's savage level 1000. And the best part is they won't last. Whenever relationships start off like this, it's doomed. Trust is out the window from the first moment because everyone knows if they cheat with you, they'll cheat on you. Eventually, they will resent each other when the dust settles and the reality of their new, crappier lives sinks in. They'll miss their old lives and begin to blame each other for messing everything up. Meanwhile, you and FBFW will have moved on and be happier. Yes, you were savage in your revenge, and I definitely approve. But your best revenge is yet to come. The best revenge is to live well. Good luck, OP. You deserve better than these terrible people. Perfect consequences for their actions. I hope you will get therapy. This is a nuclear bomb on your life and such a horrible betrayal. I know the feeling of looking back at countless happy memories and realizing they are all tainted. It's horrifying to realize the facility with which someone can lie. It's sociopathic. You have been amazingly strong. You took your son out to a restaurant with her? Hero dead. Seriously. The kids are lucky that you can be so brave for them about dealing with your pain. Thanks. Yep, I'm in therapy. I'm struggling quite a bit emotionally and have dealt with self-deletion thoughts, insomnia, weight loss, you name it. Staying focused at work has been a real challenge. There's nothing good about this situation. Would love an update in a couple of months when the divorce pans out. Considering all the evidence you have, it should go pretty well in your favor. It didn't end up making any difference. In my state, infidelity doesn't impact anything when it comes to divorce. However, due to her retirement plan, pension-based, being valued significantly higher than my 401k base plan, she wound up losing all of her equity in the house, 16 years worth. I kept it all. They put all your savings and investments in a pot and then split them. She had to either pay me tens of thousands of dollars to make up for the difference between her pension plan and my 401k, or she could take it out of her equity in the house. She was distraught when she found that out. I was pretty stunned too. My 401k is doing well due to a more than generous matching by my employer, but apparently pensions are worth a whole lot of dough. This is a really sad story, and one that I hear far too often lately. Always with everyone cheating on each other. I almost feel like I don't even know one normal relationship that was without one or both parties cheating on one another around me. I doubt I will ever want to be in a relationship if this is what I'm looking forward to. I hope you will manage to get through this, and I hope the kids will handle it well. I know when my parents divorced, it tore the whole family apart, and I'm not seeing them anymore at all. Cheating and lying, but also the whole revenge part too. Love can turn into raging hatred so easily, it can ruin not just the lives of the one you previously loved, but the lives of the kids too. Off topic, but I ducking hate cheating and divorce. My soon-to-be ex-wife cheated on me, and now I'm having to fight tooth and nail to avoid paying her alimony and child support. I have custody the majority of the time. That's some bull poop right there. I'd be losing it even worse if I had to pay child support. I mean, I get the revenge side, but damaging your wife's earnings will affect your income, so I'm scratching my head as to the logistical sanity of this. I honestly didn't think they'd deny her the promotion. I knew it would hurt her reputation, but I was surprised that the superintendent went that far. Yep, it cost me money no doubt, but on balance, I'm still glad that I did it.